Today I'm going to be talking about how getting sober coincided with my transition into becoming the athlete I am today. If you don't know me, I was a fashion model and then I became an athlete running fast and far. I'm just going to tell you guys kind of the play-by-play of what it looked like going from an unhealthy fashion model to a fast runner, and how sobriety was really the glue that got me to where I wanted to go and continues to take me to places that I never imagined. So let's back up. A long time ago, over a decade ago, I was scouted and I became a fashion model. And I started working in the highly competitive market that is the fashion industry, going on castings and photo shoots, and basically living this glamorous, crazy life. It's everything you could have ever imagined and more, with just the kinds of pressure to perform and be flying around the world going on photo shoots at the drop of a hat. I'll never forget, I remember it was like 4th of July weekend, and I got a text from my agent at the time who said, okay, pack your bags, you're jumping on a plane in the morning and you're gonna go shoot. And I was going to Mexico. I randomly was just booked on this shoot in Mexico, got there, did the job, and then less than a month later, I was on the cover of Elle Mexico. And things like that happened all the time in my career. It was just like last minute, I'd be going somewhere fast at any given moment. And that kind of lifestyle took a toll. I got so stressed out. I was constantly just freaking out. Every time I checked my email, refreshed my email to see if I had a job or a casting or a gig, I was constantly in this state of just adrenaline and never really felt like I could just let things settle. I never really knew where I was going to be at any given moment. So that kind of set the stage for then turning to substance. And by substance, I mean alcohol. I'll never forget when I realized that I could use alcohol as a way to kind of numb out all of the crazy chaos that was going on in my world and press the off switch. It started simple. It started small with like a glass of wine at the end of a hard day, but that quickly and exponentially escalated to a couple bottles of wine a night. And that even just became the highlight and the focus of my day. I knew that if I was in a stressful job, if I was on my feet all day for 12 hours in high heels, super exhausted, I knew that I had that wine waiting for me at the end of the day. And over time, I couldn't really look back and see a day that I hadn't turned to alcohol as something that I was doing every single day. It was a daily ritual. And more importantly, and I want to emphasize this, I was using alcohol as a replacement for food or nourishment. I basically rationed my calories to be taking in more alcohol than actual food. And this is extremely unhealthy. I can't even believe how much damage I did to my body probably by taking in so much alcohol instead of actual food in order to just pass out at the end of a long day and then wake up and go to my job the next day. So over time, this completely wreaked havoc on my life. But before it got bad, it was actually like really fun. It was like this crazy lifestyle. And I kind of thought that it came with the territory. I kind of like envisioned in my mind, this is what you do. This is how the world works. And especially living in New York City, people drink a lot. It's a very drinking heavy culture, especially the people I'm working with. So I just thought that this was just like the way that it was supposed to be. Now, when I got into running, I was not yet sober. I had not made the decision to be sober yet. And there's an overlap of time where I was still modeling, I was getting into running, and I was also drinking very heavily. And I used alcohol and running for a period of time to undo each other, so I thought. So I would drink very late into the night, several bottles of wine, have a wild night, pass out for a few hours, wake up, run 10 miles, and think to myself, okay, that 10-mile run undid the debauchery of alcohol the night before. And for a while, this kind of seemed like it worked. Like I would sweat a ton during my 10-mile runs, and think, okay, these canceled each other out. Like, I'm feeling good now. I'm feeling back to normal. The hangover is gone. But this hit this came to a screeching halt, this way of existing, when my life became unmanageable. And by unmanageable, I mean that the decisions that I was making while I was drinking, the undoing, the reckoning the next days became so intense that I'd be so nervous and sick to my stomach over what kind of behaviors I was participating in while I was under the influence. And I honestly can say that towards the end of my drinking days, I was losing who I was. And I would do things that I just can't even believe that I would put myself in these kinds of situations. Things that not only were affecting me, but were affecting the people around me. And that's when I really started to notice it took a turn, was when the people who I love, the people in my life, were being affected by my behaviors. So I had to make a decision to stop. And this, in the beginning, it wasn't like getting sober was something that I thought would make me a better athlete, but I knew that it was just a decision that I had to make. So in May of 2019, I got sober for the first time. And I spent the next 2.5 years completely sober from alcohol. I was going to 12-step meetings, and I was really trying to immerse myself in the community of sobriety. And my life began to radically get better. I transitioned out of being a fashion model. My running got better and better. I ran my first real marathon, which was a 2:55 debut at CIM. And so yeah, like sobriety was really starting to work for me. I was seeing my life unfold in these amazing and miraculous ways. But I think because I wasn't doing the underlying work that is required of staying sober, I started to kind of trip up on myself and my own thinking. I convinced myself that maybe I could just drink again, take a drink and be fine. And that did not last. I relapsed, and it didn't take very long for me to get back on the wagon. And now, over 1.5 years ago, I have accumulated sobriety, consistent sobriety, from March of 2022 until now. And what I've learned is that it wasn't like I made this decision to get sober and was like, okay, I'm going to run fast and far now because now that I'm sober, I'm going to take my athletic ability to the next level. That wasn't the case at all. It was actually just kind of like a nice side effect, or like getting sober made me realize that my running was going to improve because I'd have the mental capacity to be accountable and wake up for workouts and show up and be present. And also just like the general health that I experienced of not dumping ethanol alcohol into my nervous system every day, left me feeling more rested and hydrated and have the clarity and the wherewithal to make better decisions with nutrition and who I surround myself with, and just like a healthier ecosphere surrounding me as I was sober. And that has only compounded. I feel like it's funny to think that even since my relapse in March of 2022, my life began to exponentially improve as I continued the sobriety journey and staying sober and doing the practices like going to meetings and connecting with other sober individuals and putting myself first and really like tuning into that still small voice that says to stay present and take self-care when you need it and say no to things that aren't a hell yes. And so, yeah, I think that like the transition from being an unhealthy fashion model to then getting sober and then running fast and far wasn't like this easy pinpoint of like this. It overlapped, and it was messy, and there was a relapse, and there was all kinds of like ebbs and flows. And it kind of does feel like the kind of flow chart where there were high highs and low lows. And sometimes I didn't even know what I was doing. Sometimes I would go to a meeting and not really feel like I connected with anybody. And I think that the most important thing that I always say to anybody trying to stay sober is truly to just stay sober today. If you have this whisper telling you to get sober, like that maybe you need to change your lifestyle, the thing that's worked for me is not thinking too far ahead, not thinking where I'm going to be in a few months, but just thinking, how can I stay sober till the end of the day, till I put my head on the pillow at night, just focus on that. And that has been what has kept me sober. And, the other things of like connecting with other people is very important, but I feel like the most important thing is like, what can I do right now to stay sober today, one day at a time? So, that's pretty much my story of how sobriety helped transform me into the athlete that I am today. And I'm no expert, and I don't even know what the future holds. I never try to be some kind of person who's saying like, this is the answer of how to be sober. Because I'm very humbled by my sobriety. I know how hard it is. I know what it feels like to think that maybe I could be the kind of person who can moderately drink, even though I know that that's the kind of trickery that my alcoholic brain tells me. So I would just suggest that you find people that you trust, and you can open up and communicate to them whenever you feel those feelings. And that's usually how I'm set straight, is having someone to bounce off of and say, hey, no, like, do not pick up today. Just stay sober today. Also, I want to mention that one of the biggest things is that when I don't feel like I can talk to anybody, I watch a lot of YouTube videos of people talking about their sobriety journey. And of all people, Steve-O on YouTube, I watch his videos religiously. And he's very humbled by his sobriety as well. And when he does talk about it, he mentions like the sense of the working the program and things like staying in touch with other sober people and being honest and open about your urges and your desires and keeping that in check. Because I think it's when we start to get a little cocky that we think that we can outthink our affliction of being controlled by a substance. So that's my 2 cents today about sobriety and running. I hope you got something out of this. Please like and subscribe this video. I love that my YouTube channel is picking up steam, and it just means a lot to me to connect with you guys. So let me know what you think in the comments below. And until next time, just be fast. Just win.